From the Middle is a founding member of the Odd Pods Media Network. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to episode 142 of From the Middle. We are three middle-class guys living in the middle of America, in the middle chapters of our lives with a point of view that's somewhere in the middle. And if you're unsure of what that all means, this is a comedy, culture, entertainment, and interview-style podcast where we have lots of fun hanging out and making you laugh. In this episode, we keep it short and sweet. We have a few funny stories. We talk about getting older, and we make sure we discuss what we've been streaming. Check it out.
Oh, for the love.
Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it? You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved. From the Middle after dark over here.
Hey guys,
What's up, buddy?
Fancy seeing you here at the pub.
I know, it's so weird. Like this pub I had in mind. I just had a hankering for this pub, and then I walk in and you're there, and then Dillon's there. And I was like, what the heck? Let's just record a podcast.
Love it.
Here we are.
You feel like the name pub gets overused a lot now for like average run of the mill Midwestern restaurant that serves pizza?
Yeah, it's a good question. When people say pub, is that what they? When I think pub, for some in my head, I think just a bar, like any bar, whether or not there's food. Even though I think legally here in Ohio they have to serve food, so they have to, even if they don't make food, they have to like have like chips on hand or something to sell you. But or is a pub a place that has a kitchen?
Well, when I hear pub, I think it's an intentional marketing decision to signal that they're going for a certain aesthetic and feel once you're in there, rather than what does pub actually mean versus bar or speakeasy or whatever.
They're trying to hit a Great Britain vibe of some kind.
That's my feeling. I feel like they're just trying to take this kind of cozy, historic, nostalgic word, and they're just using it everywhere. It used to just be called something bar and grill, and now they're just trying to use pub there instead. And then they're trying to play off of the sort of coziness of this idea of like an English pub or an Irish pub.
Yeah. We need our British friends to tell us, I'm curious now, if pub means something, if there's a bar that is not considered a pub over there.
Family-friendly gathering spot that is going to have dark wood trim paneling, the occasional framed bit of sports memorabilia, definitely Guinness on tap, mirror behind the bar, probably some good small plates, and
sticky tables.
Sticky tables.
Yeah.
How'd I do?
Great. I think you summed it up nicely.
Why'd we go off on that tangent, our listeners ask? Because right before I clicked record, we had no preparation whatsoever for this episode. And I said, are you guys content for me to just click record and pretend that we just sat down at a table at a pub together? Great.
I also have another question. If I'm overthinking this, so
we already are, but that's okay.
That's true. So in episode 91, we had on our friend Spencer Saylor. We had this whole underground pizza experience. We went back recently. He's been adding some items and pizzas to the menu. Had another fantastic experience with my wife and I. Then another local place. So riding high of going back to the Wizard of Za Pizza, I'm a couple days later, I'm at home scrolling through social media, and a place that's local that we do like has some kind of social media post with a photo. The text reads something to the effect of, traditional wings are back in stock. Order now, something like that. And the photo is of presumably an employee in a back room, their back area, holding up 2 big bags of frozen wings.
Okay.
Like they decided that would be their social media post. And on the ground, a huge jug, like up to the knee of this person of oil, just oil. And I thought that was an interesting choice. And I'm sure I'm overthinking it, but nothing makes me want to eat there less now than that photo that is in my head. I could see chunks of ice in the bags of the chicken wings that they were holding up. Like, I know they're likely frozen, but I don't want you to show me that in the post. I don't know. I can't get it out of my head how much I don't want to go back there now.
Dillon would rather of them like be like 10 employees each carrying like an armload of live chickens.
Yeah.
Standing in front of a vat of oil.
Yeah, like some dude waving them in the back door, and then there's a row of employees like holding fresh chickens.
And then there's one guy in the front with a knife.
Yeah. Or you could have literally Googled picture of delicious wings and posted that on your social media instead of that giant bags of colorless, ice chunked chicken wings and a huge vat of oil just sitting on the ground.
Yeah. Or at the very least, like make a batch and then take that photo.
That's what I was going to say. You guys Kendall was focused on the wrong part of the timeline. We don't need to see chickens or butcher knives. Maybe cook them first. Maybe slather them with a nice sauce. Maybe zoom in with that fancy iPhone that has close-up features. Show us that end of the timeline. That's what we're interested in. We all know they're probably frozen. We don't need reminded of it.
Yeah.
It would have been better to just use the smiley face background that Facebook gives you.
Actually, that's right. It probably would have, because at least I would have gone, if I want pizza, maybe I will order some wings.
There's a mom and pop feel to not knowing how to do social media professionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
A bad logo with the white box around it cropped right to the edge of their logo on a different colored background. That's where it's at. Designer friends know what I'm talking about. We don't got time for your fancy PNGs. Go ahead, Dillon.
Yeah. No, it was just a funny kind of tale of 2 pizza shop experiences. And again, this wasn't even me being critical because it's a place locally that I do like. I have another food related story for you. So my daughter recently turned 4. I don't know why that's part of the story, but it is now. She came into our room. Oh, I guess you knew how old she was. So the listeners, she came into our room one morning and woke us up and said, we're kind of in a daze, and she's explaining, I was being a little sneaky and I found a fun dip, a thing of fun dips, the candy that you lick and stick in the powder.
The thing that you don't want your 4-year-old to stumble across.
Yeah. And she said, I had some and then I threw it away. And okay, well, she got up before us. She snuck and found it somehow. Okay, fine. We were kind of waking up. So it's like, okay, well, we'll talk about that later. But, if you threw it away, I guess that's what we need you to do anyways. So you just had a little extra sugar for breakfast. So not really thinking about it until later that day, my wife looks around the side of the couch and says, "What's that?" And we see on the floor, my daughter has a little stuffed blue yeti stuffed animal that she calls Spaghetti. Okay. And I see this stuffed blue yeti lying on his back with pink powder all across his chest and then all over the floor, like he's gone on a fun dip bender in like what is the back alley of our living room along the side of the couch. There's just powder strewn about spaghetti in like these rows. And it was really funny to be reminded that way, seeing spaghetti covered in powder. And turns out she couldn't have eaten very much because most of the powder was likely on the carpet. So kind of worked out. But it was a funny picture to see spaghetti on his fun dip bender.
Yeah.
Passed out on the ground.
Passed out from ODing on whatever that pink substance is.
Whatever that pink fun dip stuff is. I think it's just sugar. It's got to just be mostly sugar.
Was your response either, do you know how much that fun dip cost us? Or do you know how much it's going to cost to clean that carpet? As mentioned in last week's episode.
No, but I did something really dumb after that. So my wife has one of these, it's about a foot long. It's like a handheld little vacuum. Well, I've never used it before, not because I don't clean. I use the standard vacuum. She likes to use the small one that she specifically wanted. So I'm like, oh, all that powder right there. That's a great reason to go get the little handheld one. So I go grab it from her spot where she keeps it. And I look at the only end that seems to have a place to suck stuff up. And I point that down at all the powder and turn it on, and it's sucking it all up. And then she walks over and looks at it. It's like, you're going to break it. And I said, what? I hadn't removed the cap from the end that actually vacuums. I was getting it all sucked up into the back where it's supposed to like blow the air out. So I don't know if I like reversed all the fun dip into the backwards. I don't know. Next time we use it, it might just explode or light on fire. But apparently there's a whole end that's a cap that you have to remove first. I was running that very, very wrong, but no fires yet, so we're doing good.
I love the beginning of Finn's confession. I was being a little sneaky, and
yeah, she just learned that word. I don't remember what she was doing that I had to go, okay, it's time for you to learn the word sneaky. But it came in handy there, which was great, because then we knew, oh, she's admitting this is a thing. It's hard because you appreciate the honesty, right?
Right. Were you teaching her the word to describe like the being ornery or deceitful, or is that how it came up? And
yeah, she did something, and I said, "You're being sneaky. Do you know what sneaky is?" And she said, "No." And so then I was saying, "Sneaky is however I described it." So then she kind of knew that she was in fact being sneaky with the fun dip.
Yeah,
that's adorable.
To be fair, I think spaghetti was being sneakier. So. But we got all the powder off of him, got him cleaned up, back on the shelf. He's in rehab now, so
that's awesome.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
He's in rehab and Bobby Lee is out. He's back home. Just another update from last week's episode. So speaking of funny kid things, so the PlayStation is currently in my office, and Case has been playing Fortnite in there. And one of the things he likes to do is listen to music while he plays. I'm trying to tell him, because Fortnite, you hear the footsteps of your competition. And so you need to know when there are enemies nearby. He doesn't care. And I've introduced him to Green Day, like any good dad. So all him and Lily want to listen to is 21 Guns by Green Day. And so he was about to tell Alexa, she's going to start talking now because I just said it. What to play that song. And he goes, Dad, wouldn't it be really funny if every time you wanted Alexa to play music, the person had to get ready and play it for you? And then I realized he meant like the artist or band or musician had to like plug into the amp and get ready to play. I was just like, I love how his little 7-year-old mind works. That's so adorable.
Yeah, there's a little miniature Green Day that lives inside of the device.
Every different artist has to get ready on command every time that you ask it to play something. I thought that was cute.
Yeah.
That was kind of a running joke from the audio video days when people would ask about like totally wireless speakers. And you realize pretty quickly that when most people say that, they don't think about power. So they're imagining something they can like lick and stick on the wall, like as if it's a stamp, and that's how it works. And, you know, it's in your head. Then all these people are asking, and you know that the only real solution is a battery or a power cord. Like there's only two ways to make it work. But then you try to come up with fun ways to imagine how it would work. And I think the most silly always just felt like a leprechaun on a treadmill inside, like just a teeny tiny little guy. It always felt a little harsh, like that was his only, job in life. But that would be another way to power it. And so when you mentioned the tiny band inside, just gearing up, plugging in, ready to play, it took me back to those days of the little leprechaun on a treadmill.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this time of year, after Valentine's Day, and we're kind of gearing up toward, right, St. Patrick's Day. And So this time of year, you have all the leprechauns in the shopping malls with the kids to come and sit and tell the leprechaun all of their wishes and dreams. But once the season's over, man, it's probably hard for them to find work. And I would think that Bose or somebody would be doing the leprechaun community a great service by figuring out a way how to make the mini treadmill and a speaker thing possible.
Yeah, you'd think so. I'd love to see it.
Keep them busy, keep them off the streets, keep them out of the fun dip.
It also feels a little bit like a hate crime, so I'm not sure about how I feel.
I know. There was always the potential human rights violation question.
Hey, man. At will employment fixes all that.
Do mythical creatures have rights? I think is the real question here. And I appreciate that this podcast is always willing to take on the hard-hitting issues. So let us know in the comments below. Do mythical creatures have rights, or can you use them for your own personal gain? Let us know.
Yeah.
Kendall, what's going on with you, man? I know your boys were testing to get their karate belts last week or the week before?
Last week. That was a week ago today.
Okay.
Yeah. No, they passed. They are senior orange belts now.
Awesome. What are the levels for kids? Where I don't know how it works.
Oh boy. So you start out off as a white belt, and then you go to yellow, and then there's orange and senior orange, and then green and senior green. And then I think that's the end of all the senior belts. After that, then I think it goes like purple and maybe brown or red. I don't know. There's purple is one, brown is one, red is one, black obviously is one, and then there's a bunch of degrees of black. They're young. I think when they turn like, if they're still doing it when they're like 12 or 14 or something like that, at that point, they put a hard stop and say, okay, we're going to actually evaluate you as a teenager now and place you where we think you need to be as far as teens and adults. And so then you get placed at that point. And then it's kind of in the karate world more legitimate then, because right now, right, it's just kids.
Yeah.
There's 8-year-old black belts. And how does that make sense when you have a 30-year-old black belt? They can't go up against each other.
Well, you can, and that would make for some very exciting content. But we advise strongly against it.
But I think, it's like anything else. I think it's designed to pull at heartstrings and get money, right? So you want to make sure you keep the kids progressing so that they stay interested, and the parents are willing to shell out money still, and that's which I'm totally fine with. But otherwise, they would just be white belts probably until they were like a preteen, and they would all quit and get frustrated because they're not progressing.
In my mid to late 20s, we lived right next to a dojo, and I was seriously considering starting at almost 30. I was like, I'd like to take on a martial art. Why not?
Yeah.
I didn't, but thought about it.
There are definitely people who do at that age.
It seems interesting that they had this really cool sounding degrees of black belt like for that, but they couldn't just use that for like orange, like 2nd degree orange. And I don't know how they landed on that color was the one that needed a senior and a junior color. But like, I feel like the degree could have come in handy there since that was already out there in the world.
The terminology was already there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? So they have an orange belt with a black stripe that goes through it.
Senior oranges.
Good
job, boys. Proud of you.
Yeah, me too.
Fully endorsed by the From the Middle podcast. What else is going on in your world, man? Anything?
Hey, so big news in the NCAA basketball front is Michigan's coach Juwan Howard punched another coach. So that happened.
Sherry just showed me a clip of that the other night.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
It's something else, isn't it?
Wow, that was crazy.
Yeah.
I watched it multiple times. Officially, it's fingers that touch
it's an open hand swipe at a guy reaching swipe.
But then he does this right after, and so people thought he like full on gave him a right hook.
Right.
Dude, still not classy, San Diego.
Not classy. Not classy. It's an interesting scenario. For those who are wondering, from a Michigan fan, like, my vote would be that he gets fired for this. Although that's not likely to happen. But that's what I think should happen. And I think that there's at least 2 coaches from Wisconsin that deserve substantial suspensions over it too. Because when there's a talk over escalation happening, like, I still always blame the person that swung first. But like, the whole thing started because Juwan Howard was pissed off about something, and so his way to handle that was he was just going to put his head down and not shake the Wisconsin coach's hand during the handshake line, and that's all it was going to be. And so as he's trying to walk by, now Wisconsin's coach takes an issue with that and physically stops Juwan Howard from walking by and starts yelling at him, right? And so, like, had he have kept his cool, Juwan Howard was already as angry as he was going to get. But then you have this escalation thing that happens. So yeah. So for the record, Michigan fan says fire Juwan Howard. Michigan fan also says suspend guard.
Yeah.
Michigan's or Wisconsin's coach.
It was
Did I see already he was suspended for the season?
He was suspended for the season, which is like, I don't know, they've got like 6-7 games left or something, 5-6 games.
Yeah.
And then I think Coach Guard and maybe one of the other assistants got fines. I don't think they saw suspensions, but I could be remembering that wrong. So I do think that the Big Ten went light on Juwan Howard.
Yeah. Which all stemmed from them not liking the fact that Wisconsin just wouldn't let the game end and kept calling timeouts. And it was like, the game's already over. Like, quit like calling timeout.
Yeah, he thought it was an unsportsman situation going on from Wisconsin, which I don't really care. Like, that's neither here nor there for me.
So it was funny, speaking of sports and me, and where I get my sports news, my wife, our buddy John from the Grab 'em in the Brisket podcast and I were texting the other day, and this is post Super Bowl, and he texts and says, by the way, happen to catch that 49ers versus Green Bay game? Which those weren't the teams in the Super Bowl, in case you weren't aware. And I responded with, I think the goalie slammed a dunk and acquired many personal stat units. And he said, LMAO, did your wife tell you to say that? And I said, believe it or not, I came up with that one on my own. Thanks, John.
Very good.
Yeah, that was great. So anyway,
that's awesome. And a little nod there. One of our friends in the Odd Pods Media Network, if you haven't listened, go check out the Big 10 Plus 4 podcast.
Yeah,
that's great. They do a lot of football and basketball, mostly on the Big 10, but they will talk about teams from all over the college world. And so if you haven't checked out that podcast, definitely go check them out.
And if they weren't our mid-roll ad before that comment, they certainly are now, if they have one. Speaking of senior belts and the word senior, we've joked the last couple episodes about getting older. And Dillon posted a meme. Dillon, was that on Twitter or was that in our From the Middle for the Middlers Facebook group? About
I think it was on Facebook.
Yeah, it was like things that I used to get injured doing and things that I get injured doing now. So last week I woke up with 2 new injuries that I didn't have pre-Sleepies. So the first one, and the weirdest one, I've never experienced this before in my life. I wake up and my pinky is completely numb just from the second knuckle outward, like toward the end of my finger. It wasn't numb here, but completely numb here.
Just not so much here or here, but right here.
So this sometimes happens because I usually sleep on my right side, fetal position, with my right arm outward over the bed. So my arm is sometimes dangling off the edge of the bed. And that'll sometimes happen if I'm sleeping on my shoulder and, I lose circulation to my hand.
Right.
But it goes away when you wake up and you shake it out and all good. For 2.5 days, it didn't go away. It didn't go away.
Wow.
Such a weird. And so I'm looking it up and they're like carpal tunnel. You have a pinched nerve in your elbow, blah, blah, blah. The second one was today. And I wake up and the first noise that I uttered was, oh! Just a sharp shooting pain from my lower back upward up my spine. And I'm like, what is happening? I'm literally just sleeping. Getting old sucks, man.
I wish I had the link to it. I saw a video of that kind of noise coming out of a toddler who had picked it up from the dad. The toddler goes to sit down on something 3 inches away from its bottom, and you hear it go.
That's funny.
Which is great.
Nature versus nurture. And then I look it up. My 20-year high school reunion is next year.
Ooh.
Wow.
Dude, what is happening even in a world?
I don't know.
One of those big moments. Do you think you're going to go, or are you going to keep pushing it off?
I haven't been to one yet. I think it was at the 15. It was at the 10 or 15, and I bumped into a friend at the mall, and they said, "Are you going to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't think so." And they're like, "I'm not going to go either. In the world of social media, I know what everybody had for lunch yesterday. Why do I need to go somewhere to catch up with folks?" I see that being something I do later in life, for sure. But I don't know. Right now, it feels like in some ways we just graduated.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wake up and my pinky's numb, and then I realize maybe that was a little longer ago than I'm thinking.
I got to go see these guys before I kick the bucket. If not now, when?
I was just going to say, some people are like, call me for the 40th. We'll see who's left. Sometimes that's the spirit of the response,
Oh man, 20 years. That's crazy to me. Also, I sort of inadvertently alienated myself from a lot of my friends when I was getting really serious with Sherry, and we were always a whole life phase or 3 ahead of everyone else. We were engaged in college and eloped sophomore year of college, and they're all still wait, what? They're not interested in a serious relationship. So, and I was kind of a selfish jerk my junior and senior year. But anyway, that's another conversation for another day. But yeah, 20 years. Cannot believe it.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about more about how Kory's a jerk after we hear from one of our friends in the Odd Pods Media Network.
Hi, I'm Shannon.
I'm Jamie.
We're Married with Television, marriedwithtv.com. We are a couple of Hollywood normies on the outskirts of the film and TV industry, and we talk about our favorite TV shows, music, and movies, and sometimes they talk back to us.
Sometimes they do.
Our podcast is Married with Television, one word, on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, and SoundCloud.
Possibly Amazon soon. And we are a proud member of the Odd Pods Media Network.
Married with TV.
MarriedWithTV.com.
Hey, it's Dalton.
And Sam.
We want to tell you about our podcast called Big 10 Plus 4.
Are you a college football fan who doesn't want to always be talking about the SEC?
Are you a college basketball fan who's tired of hearing how the Big 10 doesn't win in the big dance?
Then we're the show for you. Check us out each week on the Odd Pods Media Network. We bring you college sports with a Big 10 flavor.
Big 10 Plus 4. College sports with Midwest perspective. Blue collar and blue blood.
So we're gonna come back with stories about how Kory's a jerk. How much time do we have?
We keep a time limit on this podcast, so I have to put it together tonight, and so that it'll drop tomorrow morning. So keep it to 15 stories, maybe.
Well, we put two ads in just so I could start making a list. So, I feel like just depending on how much time we want to.
I love you too, buddy.
I'm just kidding, man. this feels like the part where we normally start talking about what we're streaming. And I don't know what you guys have been streaming this week.
I got a lot this week, and I'm really excited to talk about at least two of them. So
then let's do it. Go ahead. Shoot.
Start it, man.
So I listened to Your Mom's House, which I've talked about multiple times on this podcast. For new listeners, that is Tom Segura, a comedian, and his wife, also a comedian. Her name is Christina Pajitsky. She goes by Christina P. They talked about on Your Mom's House that they had just finished a documentary on Disney Plus by National Geographic called The Rescue, which is about the Thai soccer team of young boys who got trapped in a cave, and the rescue attempt after they had been in there for some 18 days. And the story behind that rescue. Have you guys heard about this? Do you remember that story from 2018-ish?
I definitely remember that story. There were people chiming in from all over the world with theoretical solutions, and yeah, didn't Elon Musk say something dumb and then he had to backpedal on him saying something dumb?
I didn't remember him being involved.
That was one of the first times I remember him saying something outwardly it seemed really stupid about it. We'll have to Google it and take a look.
Yeah, I'm doing that now. I don't remember Elon Musk being involved. Kendall, do you remember that at all?
Not yet.
Okay, so here's the sitch. So these boys, and I think they ranged in age from, they're young boys, 10, 11, 12-ish age, a soccer team and their coach were exploring this cave, which in that part of Thailand was a common area where people would play and explore. Old Man's Cave would be in Hocking Hills. It's a known cave, except this is a whole cave system. But this cave floods in the rainy season, which is usually July. And the time that the boys were there was June. So this is before they were closed. And out of nowhere, this monsoon comes and the cave starts filling with water, locking the 12 boys and their coach in a section of this cave. So they're still in an area where they have air, but the entrance and most of the path to get to them is completely flooded. So I don't know I forget what the total distance was from the cave entrance to the boys in terms of actual distance, but the time that ended up being required to try to dive to and get them was 2.5 hours one direction. So we're talking a massive distance. And when it first happened, the Thai Navy sent their version of the SEALs to try to go in and retrieve them. But those military guys, the Thai Navy SEALs, as experienced as they are with water and diving, have zero experience with diving in cave systems. So they end up relying on hobbyists from the UK who do this for fun on the weekends and dive in very tight spaces filled with water underground. And they became the on-the-ground experts consulting the Navy SEALs on how to retrieve them. So this documentary is absolutely fascinating. Spoiler alert, they all survive. But the spoiling is not in the fact that they survive. It's such a fascinating look at crisis management and how they logistically got them out, because at a much closer distance to the cave entrance, there were some guys that were trying to get a pump system integrated into the cave to lower the water level. Those guys ended up getting trapped just a few hundred meters in. So as the first sort of trial and experiment for how to get these boys out, the British cave divers put a regulator on these grown Thai men and just got them out of the cave, but they had no face mask or anything. They just had the regulator. the feeling of being underwater with no visibility about where you are in a tight space. They were flailing all over the place, and a sense of panic sets in because your eyes are closed and somebody else is ushering you underwater. And so the British guys were like, we just tried to get four grown men who we told exactly what was going to happen and to stay calm. We just tried getting them out a much shorter distance, and they freaked out. So the only way that they could think, there's no way we're going to get these boys out of here. And they're way, way, way further in. It takes 2.5 hours once we do find them to get them out. So somebody comes up with the idea to put them under anesthesia. So they're going to put these boys, once they find them, under anesthesia, keep their chins up and their airways open. And while they're unconscious, carry them 2.5 hours. But the minute their mask starts to fill with water, I mean, you absolutely have to watch this documentary. It is so fascinating how they managed that situation. And every boy lived. And it is so well done.
So I found this silly Elon Musk reference. Apparently, one of the British divers who split his time between the UK and Thailand was a Mr. Unsworth. Elon Musk had sent some Tesla engineers in a small submarine to northern Thailand to help with the rescue effort, but the vessel was never used. Instead, he and Mr. Unsworth got into a public war of words after the diver branded the offer of help a, quote, PR stunt. Then during a CNN interview, the diver suggested Elon Musk, quote, stick his submarine where it hurts. to which Mr. Musk replied with a series of tweets about Mr. Unsworth, eventually calling him the, quote, pedo guy.
Oh, geez.
Took it a really dark turn. And a bunch of those tweets were deleted by Elon Musk. If you care to know, as of December 19th or 2019, Elon Musk did win the defamation case over, quote, pedo guy tweeting about the cave. So it wasn't real defamation. But that was I just remember this stupid exchange and him being involved going, why turn it? I mean, if they don't use your submarine, fine. The guy probably shouldn't have fired back about it being a PR stunt, but you certainly didn't need to take it down,
Yeah.
Where he did.
Ease up, Juan.
Yeah. And once you watch the documentary, and for those who know the cave, so they had like a regional expert who was an expert on the cave, but he wasn't as much a diver. He was just the one who was generally plotting and doing the cartography of the cave. And then those like hobbyist cave divers. But anyway, once you hear from them and you see some of the areas were so tight that they actually had the divers bringing them out, had to push the unconscious boy ahead of them through the space and then themselves shimmy through. I mean, that's how tight some of these spaces are. So if you're claustrophobic, a little warning when you watch it, but it's a safe enough of a documentary that I watched it with the kids and just absolutely fascinating. And it was a global story, and there were constant updates on all media channels on updates by the hour of what was happening. Just a fascinating documentary. Highly recommend it.
Wow.
Did you say you were watching other stuff too?
Yeah, the other one is on Netflix, and that's called The Tinder Swindler. Tinder, the dating app swindler. Okay. One who swindles. And this thing is very different tonally, but it's this guy who claimed to be the son of a diamond exchange and diamond business owner, and would have these first dates with women where he would make it appear as though he was living this extremely lavish lifestyle. Their first date or their first interaction post Tinder would be in a very fancy hotel lobby. And then he would say, we should meet again, and I'll send a private jet. And then we're going to fly to this other part of the world and have a fancy dinner. And so that would be their first true date with him. So they're totally swept up in this story. I don't want to give away sort of what the swindle was or what was going on. But when you get into the depth of what was actually going on in this situation, it's not like super dark or creepy. But and the fact that this guy, he's still out there today and he somehow got around it, but he took hundreds of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars from individuals, millions in total from people, creating this false persona and websites when they inevitably went to Google him. And it is, you can't believe, like, just like some of the stuff going on in this planet and the lengths people will go to. There are so many lessons about dating apps. Although both the victims that are interviewed in the documentary, they're like, "Oh no, I'm still on Twinder. I'm still on Tinder. It wasn't Tinder's fault. I'm still on Tinder. It wasn't Tinder's fault. They're just a lot more careful now." But then also just like it's just comments about like influencer culture and just how easily deceived we can be when people pluck at our old heartstrings. And anyway, I know my audience here, and I know each of you met your spouses on dating apps, but it worked out for you guys, and you still have all your monies, so that's good.
Yeah, having not seen it yet. Some people are so entrepreneurial.
yeah, exactly. And you don't know me that. Like, what if I'm playing like the really long game?
Yeah.
So you don't know.
Yeah, I haven't lost any of my money, but ask her if she's lost any of hers. Boom.
Boom.
I would also like to. We're recording remotely this evening because I have the tummy rumbles.
Dillon almost spat out his liquids.
I just want to point out to my wife that this is the moment when she just left from like staring through the window of the office door, looking at me drinking and trying her best to look creepy. So
who's being swindled?
Yeah, who's being swindled now?
Who's being twindled?
The other two, careful. We have already twiddled and pedos. The other two are stand-up specials. We all love some Aziz Ansari, and he has a new special on Netflix called Nightclub Comedian. He filmed it 20 years. Yeah. He filmed it in the Comedy Cellar in New York 20 years after he first appeared there as a brand new comic.
All right.
And so they show some footage of that, which was pretty cool. And then I'm an Ali Wong fan. She's a little bit crass and raunchy, but this is her third Netflix special, Don Wong. And I think she's funny. I think she's a great writer. If you can get past the raunch, it's definitely not family friendly. But I mean, as raunchy as some of those comics are, like they're still making some very good points and social commentary. And so I see it for what it is, not what it is at surface level, and really enjoyed both. So that's it for me.
Right on.
I feel like this is I've not watched anything to completion recently, so I don't have any major updates. We did just restart we started Space Force season 2 with Steve Carell.
I forgot all about that
on Netflix. Season 1 it was fine. I remember thinking like it's okay, but Steve, because it had Steve Carell and a lot of Ben Schwartz and John Malkovich, and there's a lot of people in it that folks would at least visually recognize. We sort of like, well, we'll instantly give season 2 another chance. Like, sure. This isn't something that we would turn off after one episode of season 1 or 2 episodes of season 1. So season 2 has already been much better than season 1. Full disclosure, I haven't finished it yet. But that's really the only thing new I've watched. recently.
Did we cover season 1 on this podcast? I think I remember you saying, or somebody saying something like, don't going in necessarily expecting like Steve Carell comedy with Space Force. Like it's like a drier, wittier comedy. Is that accurate? I still haven't started season 1, but it's in my queue ready to be watched. I just not been in the mood.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more, there is a lot more drama in it than there is in anything else that you've probably seen Steve Carell in. But so it does find heartstrings to tug at, like legitimate ones, not just like they're here for one episode, but like overarching storyline ways. I do think that we touched on it, but we probably didn't talk about it that much because I feel like the first season didn't garner the popularity that it could have. But like what Dillon said, it's worth it. There are so many comedies and sitcoms from the past that had horrible first seasons that ended up being really great shows.
Yeah, fair point.
I do think it's worth keeping on. I literally forgot about it. So
yeah. Well, I remembered it. It's one of the things I do really appreciate Netflix for is those email reminders when new things come out that when you've rated enough, it's like, hey, this is coming Friday and we think you'll want to watch it. And those are almost always very helpful for me. And so I know that was one of those email reminders I got last week. So we started watching it a night or two ago. And then Disney Plus is adding, I think, Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds soon. That might even be tomorrow when this one drops, and some other stuff. So I'm sure I'll have more in the next week or two that I will have watched new, but we'll likely finish Space Force tonight. So we can do a deeper review. But I think if you go into either season expecting Michael Scott, you're going to be severely disappointed because he's a much more buttoned up general who's got his own issues. So he has this sort of outburst moments. But he's clearly trying to keep it buttoned up and professional most of the time. And the fun part is you get people like, I already said his name, Ben Schwartz and John Malkovich. You get them to fill in some of those over the top moments, with their characters, especially Ben Schwartz, because, if you've watched him in anything or Parks and Rec and some of the stuff, he's just way over the top. So, but yeah, season 2 has been refreshing compared to season 1.
Well, that's a little note for you communications and marketing folks, because most of those like unsolicited emails from the things that you subscribe to, I automatically delete. But that's not the first time that Netflix has reminded me of something that you might be interested in. And, oh, I actually am. Thanks for the reminder. Like I forgot that the newest season of Ozark was coming out and I binged that. And then especially with stand-up specials, because there's so many of them on Netflix right now, like it's pretty effective in terms of like, it's really learned my curated things that I've watched and does a pretty good job. So yeah.
True that. For me, my streaming also, I expect to ramp back up. The Olympics are over now. So that's done.
Who won?
Who won? Norway won. Norway always wins. Congratulations to the Norwegians.
Dillon, do you want to stereotype the Norwegians while we're at it? It's been a while since we've done
Dillon. I know that Dillon has some opinions about Norway.
I'm sure they'll go back to their very clean, rustic cabins and enjoy their medals humbly and professionally, all the while mocking their other Scandinavian counterparts that they view as much lesser. So
burn. Good one.
Specifically Finland and Sweden. They constantly.
I think those would be the only other counterparts. Am I wrong?
Well, it depends on if you want to like go down into like Denmark or Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, some of those other.
Who wants to go down into Denmark?
Yeah.
Well, Dillon, that was low, but I imagine you could have gone a lot lower.
Oh.
Frankly, I'm just glad Russia or China didn't win the Olympics. So as long as it's not anybody, not those two, pretty much anybody else is fine.
Wow. Okay. Well, Dillon just pissed off everybody.
Tell us how you really feel about Russia
No
and
kidding.
China.
Well, if I do, I might get invaded. So I better not. That's pretty new news, right?
Oh, snap.
Or I might get slowly marched into, but not invaded.
Yeah, right.
I hate it when I'm slowly marched into against my will.
Yeah.
Oh boy. But the last couple days I've been catching up on wrestling again. I got like a month. I'm about 3 weeks back, 3 weeks behind right now. And so while using the Peacock app, I discovered that there's a WWE tab in the Peacock app. And I noticed that like I could go back and I could watch the Royal Rumble if I want to.
Oh, nice.
And the Elimination Chamber, which happened like a week ago, is on there right now. Which is cool because I'm on Hulu watching SmackDown and Raw, and I'm watching them gear up toward the Elimination Chamber. And then when it comes to that point, I'll be able to watch the Elimination Chamber in my own time.
That's cool.
So, and then that'll be just in time for me to delete the Peacock app. So, to unsubscribe from it. But no, I'm excited about that because I've never been pay for the pay-per-view kind of guy. So it's going to be really cool the first time that I've had the experience of watching the lead in and then watching the event. I wish it was WrestleMania, but it's not. I'll take Elimination Chamber, which on Elimination Chamber Day, I think is when it is. We're going to have a Goldberg Roman Reigns situation. So looking forward to it.
That's exciting. Dillon, you were a huge Goldberg fan.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. I remember that was probably the very end of me watching wrestling, somewhere around junior high, I think, for me. And Goldberg unjustly lost the belt to Kevin Nash in WCW back then. And I do remember one of the few things I remember about the tail end of that was when they literally had like a 10-minute all of WCW versus NWO. So like thing happening massive. So Goldberg was fighting Nash. All the NWO came out, helped Nash beat Goldberg. Then all of WCW that was available came out, including Richard Smiley. It's important not to forget Richard Smiley. All of WCW like came out, and there was this massive like free for all in the arena, but he still lost his belt. And I think that was about the end. I was probably pretty upset that Goldberg lost the belt.
Yeah.
But I remember that time.
Wow. Kendall, speaking of not paying for pay-per-view, I think I've only purchased in my life maybe 2 pay-per-view anythings ever. And one of them was a Conor McGregor fight. And I don't even remember what the other one was. So the last 3 weekends I've been watching UFC but I don't pay for the pay-per-view either. But some of my favorite comedians who are also podcasters do what they call fight companions, which is they don't show the fight at all. So there's no audio or video of the fight, but they are reacting to it in real time. So you can sync the pay-per-view with their YouTube live stream and see your favorite comedians react to the fight. So I watch the prelims, which are free. And then when it switches over to the pay-per-view, I just watch the 3-hour fight companion and just pick up on what's happening in the fight through their commentary. And it got me thinking, is there anything we could do a companion to? Dillon mentioned that maybe we do it during the Super Bowl, and we just couldn't get our calendars together to make it happen. But I wonder if our audience has an appetite to hear us do like a companion to something that's like a live sporting event or it would have to be something
that we'd be willing to to gain access to, or most people don't or can't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a thought. So putting it out there, let us know. Do you have thoughts? Do you want to hear us weigh in on like an award show or like a WrestleMania one of these days? That might be fun. Like we could do our own mystery science theater version of us idiot talking heads just reacting to whatever's going on.
That'd be fun.
If we did wrestling, I would be horribly out of the loop. So that could be a lot.
You'd have thoughts. You'd have thoughts, and that would be the balancing. You know, that'd be the outlier
the triangle thing that we talk
triangle
about.
thing that we talk about.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Works for me.
All right. Well, this has been fun. I love catching up with you guys. It was a great end to what has been a very long day for me. So thanks for that. It's great catching up with you at this pub. I don't know which of us is going to pick up the tab, but I'm thinking Dillon. So thanks for joining, everyone. Be sure to check out artiusman.com for your favorite men's grooming products. That's ARTIUSMAN.com. Use promo code THEMIDDLE at checkout to get amazing, naturally made men's grooming products, soaps, lotions, beard balms, waxes, and oils, as well as cool merch like Dillon's hat and really good soy blend Woodwick candles. They have really good stuff. And thanks, Jeff, over there for the partnership. Anything else, guys, or can we catch everyone next Wednesday morning?
Next Wednesday morning.
Sounds good. Play that intro music, Kendall, or outro music, Kendall.
Whatever that is. I don't know that we have anything.